A lot of people are very depressed because they don't know what their purpose is. And what psychedelic medicines did for me was they taught me that all of the trials and tribulations that I had been through in my life led me up to this moment so I could be of the highest level of surface. You can only achieve that kind of mentality when you've had a real healing experience yourself. And now that I've had this experience, I need to share it with other people. And once you actually find that for yourself, life gets very exciting again. And I think that psychedelic medicines give people the opportunity to sit back and be the observer and really get to that place of clarity where they know that even if they went through some incredibly hard and trying and difficult things in their lives, that they can use that for a positive thing in the long run.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Psychedelic Conversations. Today we have a returning guest, Charles Patti. So great to have you. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. It's great to see you.
It's been a while, so I'm really excited to hear the updates and also follow up on what we have discussed last time. But before we can get into it, in case our listeners are joining us for the first time and maybe it's their first time getting to know you, I would like to share a few lines of your bio to give it a context, and then we can take it from there. Charles, you are a brand ambassador and co-founder for My Self Wellness. It's a cutting-edge ketamine clinic and pioneer in the psychedelic space based in Bonita Springs, Florida. My Self Wellness specializes in breakthrough experience by offering intramuscular ketamine. The goal of the I Am Ketamine treatment is to create a non-ordinary or altered state of consciousness to facilitate a profound, transpersonal, transcendental, mystical, spiritual peak experience. When paired with talk therapy, My Self Wellness goal is to explore and clear the psyche so the clients can experience a full mental reset using ketamine therapy. And this is a medically supervised, custom-tailored approach to serve each individual's needs. And you have partnered with Enthea to expand access to ketamine therapy through employee benefit packages. This is great news. And I'm also aware of your newly launched podcast.
Yeah.
So congratulations, Charles.
Thank you.
And so let's begin. And please tell us a little bit about your background, what brings you to this work, just to refresh our memories.
Yeah, no, for sure. So like many other people, I had I lost my father when I was very young, and like many people out there, I suffered from, depression and anxiety, PTSD, and I ended up self-medicating with alcohol and other substances for a lot of years. And it was through the use of psychedelic medicines therapeutically, I alleviated all of that out of my life. And so now it's all about meditative practices and breath work and healthy lifestyle changes and all of the things that I continue to do in my life since my, a psychedelic journey that I embarked on.
Amazing. And tell us a little bit about the My Self Wellness Clinic and how it came to being and the service at the moment, and who are you serving? So that's really interesting to learn a bit more.
Okay, for sure. So, well, because I had gone through all the trials and tribulations that I did for so many years and got to a really good place from using psychedelic medicines therapeutically, my wife and I, Christina, took a leap of faith and started our clinic about 5 years ago, which was right before a week before the lockdown of COVID. And it was definitely one of the hardest times in the history of, mankind, I think, to start a company, but we stayed positive and used the laws of attraction and kept pushing forward. And I was like, listen, if I went through 20 years worth of misery and don't use what helped me to help other people, it seems like a big waste of a lot of years of my life. So we took the leap of faith, and now fast forward to where we're at. We've done over 12,000 ketamine treatments from our facility. have an astronomically high success rate of helping people suffering from depression, anxiety, post-traumatic stress disorder, substance abuse issues, OCD, bipolar disorder. And it's really because we're getting away from the pharmaceutical paradigm of treating people's symptoms and actually getting to the root issue and the root cause.
That's great. Thank you for sharing. And is there a special reason why ketamine? Because, we talk about, is it the legal system, the sensitivity around the space? Is that why? Or is it because you truly have passion for ketamine?
So believe it or not, ketamine is the only legal psychedelic that we have access to right now. And a lot of people actually don't understand this, but the psychedelic capabilities of ketamine is just incredible. An intramuscular shot of ketamine at the right dose is very comparable to an hour-long DMT or ayahuasca session. And it's probably one of the most profound psychedelic experiences that a human being can have. And so you know, I'm a fan of all of the compounds. And when we have legal access to using these compounds, I will want to use MDMA when that goes through FDA approval and things like that. But, I think that people need to give ketamine a little bit more notoriety and credit, because the truth is that this is the medicine that's going to be the beginning of this psychedelic revolution that's underway. It's the only one that we can legally use right now. And people are achieving decades worth of therapy and six treatments at our facility. It profound for these actual experiences is an understatement. We have people having, oneness experiences or burning bush experiences where they say they meet God. People are processing past traumatic experiences. People are speaking with deceased relatives during their treatments. It's just incredible what this medicine is doing. And the great thing about ketamine is because it's so safe and not toxic, we actually we don't have to take people off of any of the medications that they might be on going up into these treatments. So, like DMT or ayahuasca, you can't be on certain SSRIs and things like that if you're going to use that medicine. Where ketamine, we can pretty much treat anybody right away. Even with fentanyl addiction, we just recently treated somebody that was actively addicted to fentanyl when we first started treating them. And by the time they were done with their six treatment protocol, they were completely clean from using that. And so now they're actually in a great place and they're helping other people.
Wow, that's huge. In case our listeners are not familiar with fentanyl, please tell us what it is and the addiction side of it.
Yeah, no, so fentanyl is it's a synthetic opiate, and it's, you know, incredibly toxic, and it's killing a lot of people out there. So it's way stronger than heroin. I think it's like 50 times stronger than morphine or even more than that. And most of the deaths when you hear about the opioid epidemic where people are actually dying is from a fentanyl overdose. And so it's not like it used to be where people were, heroin or something was more consistent and it wasn't killing people as much, but a single grain or a couple little grains of fentanyl, when not dosed properly, can be lethal to somebody. So, it's there's here locally, we live in Lee County. Lee has this thing that's called one pill can kill, and they're actually lacing pressed pills with fentanyl, pretending like there are other medications out there, and people are taking one pill and it's killing them.
Why would they create this drug in the first place if it's so dangerous?
So, fentanyl has its place. I mean, in the hospitals and things like that, it is used for surgeries and for pain medication, but they're mass producing it out of China, and they're sending it down to Mexico to the cartels where they're pressing it into pills, and they're actually mixing it into batches of heroin to make it much more potent, and it's be very cheap to manufacture. So you know, the amount of money you can make from in the black market from something like that is just astronomical. And so that's why people are using it the way that they're using it illegally now.
I guess it's so highly addictive. I'm guessing this is and also, would you say it correlates? Has it always been this way, or would you say that it's more common now, the fentanyl use? Would you say that people are becoming more addictive now, or is it because we're hearing it now?
So fentanyl is so potent that when people have an opiate addiction and they were using heroin or something like that, people actually prefer the fentanyl. And so like people are seeking out fentanyl when they're actively in addiction because of the potency of it. The thing about fentanyl, and one of the reasons why it's so addictive too, though, is because the actual half-life of fentanyl isn't as long as your typical opiates. So like let's say if somebody was using heroin, they would probably only have to use it like once or twice a day, where fentanyl is out of the system very quickly and you probably have to use it like every 3 to 4 hours or people start going through withdrawals again. And so it's an incredibly addictive, nasty medicine, or not medicine, but drug when it's used like that out there, that honestly is I've actually personally lost a lot of friends to overdoses from fentanyl.
Wow, thank you so much for sharing. This is really valuable to spread awareness.
Yeah.
And so then the ketamine, as you said, it was helpful to.
Yeah.
Mhm.
No, yeah, no, it really, like, one another thing about ketamine that people don't realize, because a lot of people just talk about ibogaine and things like that, but ketamine is being used to get people off of opiate addiction and other substance abuse problems. But I'm actually convinced with what we've seen at the clinic that if the public was educated properly and we got enough people that were actively addicted to opiates that were ready to make a change in their life, ketamine could literally have the capability of ending the opioid epidemic.
That's huge. Just
Yeah.
huge, isn't it? And also, I'm guessing ketamine is also like, like everything, all the compounds, we haven't got all the research and the studies and the understanding, the education, like you said. I mean, I come across a lot of people, they think ketamine is a sedative and it just, numbs you and it's not psychedelic. So what would you say to that? You said that it could be as close to DMT, and I find that fascinating.
Yeah, so like a while back, I was actually speaking with Dennis McKenna, and he told me that the molecule of DMT and ketamine are very, very similar. Like when you like look at the chemical makeup of it, and there's only when Rick Strassman talks about there's only a couple compounds out there that are really triggering these NDE or near-death experiences, and ketamine and DMT are two of those molecules. And so like ketamine, when done in the right doses, people hear about, like, during certain psychedelic experiences where people have this death experience where they like experience what it would be like to die, and then they have this rebirth, this like awakening experience. And ketamine is actually triggering that in people. So, it's giving people a new lease on life, putting people in an incredible place of gratitude. And then, as our doctor, Dr. Ferber, would say, because ketamine is a dissociative, because it's a dissociative anesthetic, when we get into a disassociated state, it removes the active blocks that are holding back past repressed traumatic experiences so we can really process, release them, and let them go. It's like when we're in a disassociated state, the mind separates from the body. And so, also, one thing that's really interesting about ketamine is that when people are deep meditators, their brain goes into alpha. Okay, it's like this, it's alpha waves, it's a state. And they took like deep meditators and monitored brain activity. And then they actually monitored brain activity when people are on ketamine, and it sends you into the same state. So ketamine is really like a chemically induced meditative state at the deepest level possible. But one interesting thing is, for people that have a hard time getting into a meditative state, ketamine also causes new neuroplasticity in the brain. And it's basically programming your mind, training your mind to get into these meditative states so you can actually get there without having to use the medicine moving forward in the future.
I hear you. Yeah, that's very powerful, especially for someone with PTSD or any of those kind of conditions. I can imagine to be in those, it can be very confrontational. I mean, if you look at the classic psychedelics like mushrooms and ayahuasca and other, they can be very confrontational, those people. And would you say ketamine can also be helpful for those people that are absolutely terrified of using psychedelic compounds? Because there are people that they know deep down they have all these symptoms and mental health challenges, like people who has, recovered from psychosis, breakdowns, depression, they tend to be quite cautious coming into the psychedelic space. So would you say ketamine can maybe more helpful?
I actually think that like for the public in general, ketamine is probably the most digestible from like a mental place, like where we can actually tell people, hey, listen, we have a dissociative anesthetic that's so safe they use it on children 1.5 and older for surgeries, and it might actually be able to help you with your PTSD or your mental health issues, which doesn't sound as scary as, hey, let's go take some mushrooms or drink ayahuasca, because a lot of people look at that like those are drugs, where because this is FDA approved as an anesthetic, it might be looked at as more of a medicine. Also, when people have anxiety before their first psychedelic experiences, which probably pretty much everybody's going to have anxiety going into something like that, one of the best things about ketamine is because of the anesthetic qualities of the medicine, it takes the anxiety out of the equation. It's very relaxing, it's very euphoric. And so once the medicine starts to take effect, we tell people, close your eyes, lay your head back, pretend like you're going to take a nap. And it lulls them into this incredibly profound healing experience. But it's not as jarring, and there's the tryptamines don't build up in your system like with mushrooms or something like that, which makes your chest tight and it can trigger anxiety. Ketamine's like the pretty much the opposite of that. So I get asked all of the time, like if I was going to start my psychedelic journey, what would be the best like medicine for me to try first? And I always say ketamine because of those anesthetic qualities of the medicine. And as versatile, like, we've treated from ages now 15 to 89 years old at our facility. We had a 15-year-old autistic boy that we treated not long ago. And it was amazing because after his first treatment, he was sitting in the integration room next to his mother on the couch, and he looks over at her and he goes, "Did you know that we're all a part of the same thing? That everything's connected?" And I was just like, that's beautiful. Like 15 years
Amazing.
old, and he just had an awakening experience of the oneness of consciousness. And so ketamine has the capability to do that for people.
What was the purpose of his coming to the treatment?
So ketamine's really helping people with autism.
Wow.
Yeah.
So is it all clear now? Because I remember in the beginning of ketamine spreading, I used to listen to some of these lectures and maybe online webinars around maybe some medications or pharmaceuticals are not allowed, or antidepressants can interact. Is this all clear now? Is it okay if people are on medication?
So, I mean, like the only medications that we tell people to be careful with really are like stimulants like Adderall or Ritalin or something like that. We don't want people taking a stimulant before they come in for a treatment. Um, and anti-anxiety medications like Xanax, the benzodiazepines can actually dull people's experience. But, for the most part, this is an incredibly safe medication that there are clinics out there that won't treat people if they're on antidepressants or if they haven't tried antidepressants first or something like that. We're not a part of that paradigm. We actually would rather do this than put somebody on a medication, because at the end of the day, we're really mostly getting people off of their medications. We just treated a Marine recently that the VA had him on 9 different medications, and by the time he was 4 treatments in with us, he was already off all of his medications.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. Do you think this takes a bit of courage, Charles? Because a lot of people are literally excluding all the important people that really need this treatment, all these experiences. I look at some of the screening protocols that almost all the people that need it are excluded. What are your
I
thoughts on that?
yeah, I don't know about that. Like, we are here to assist and empower people on their healing journeys. And like, if people have depression or anxiety or like there's like even schizophrenia. I mean, like it's on a case by case place. Like we actually treated somebody that was schizophrenic not long ago, and we had really good results with the medicine. So like we're different, but like it's because everybody that works here is incredibly well versed in psychedelic medicines. I mean, like everybody's done the treatments, even all of our nurses, our doctor, everybody. And so like we really know the safety profile and the efficacy for this medicine. And There pretty much aren't too many people out there, in our opinion, that couldn't benefit from something like this. We treat from the 15-year-old autistic boy to the suicidal soldier to the mom who has a lot of anxiety because, the stress of being a mother. And like recently we had a young 17-year-old kid who was self-medicating with drugs and alcohol, was getting in trouble with the law, and mom brought him in because she was so scared for her son and didn't know where else to turn and heard this might help. And then she basically had her own PTSD from having to go through what she was going through with him, worked so well for the son, then mom comes in and does the treatments also. So then the family is healing together. And like, I talk about it all the time. And I mean, we can like stick to the science and mental health and everything, but like this medicine is waking people up. So like this is about the transformation of humanity to a higher state of consciousness. I have guys who run $100 million companies that come in here because they're stressed out and they have anxiety because they have so much on their plate. And, they're coming out of their treatments and they're journaling new business ideas down, and they're, creating new companies that are changing the world from using this medicine.
Um, I hear you. I think makes sense. I'm resonating with that also. I want to come back to couple of things actually, Charles, if you don't mind. One of them is this is really huge for me. So I'm a lifelong researcher on schizophrenia because I have it in my family. And what was the treatment like? If you could say anything a little bit more about the person who had gone through the treatment with schizophrenia, what were was it an auditory or visual? What was the condition, the struggle?
So I don't know the exact details of it because I'm not the doctor. Dr. Ferber does
Mm-hmm.
that, but I do know that the young gentleman ended up getting off of a few of the different medications that he was on, and mom was so excited and happy because this was the first time in her life where she like really felt like she had her son. And I know another friend of mine said that she ended up healing her schizo or getting a ton of healing from her schizophrenia from actually using ketamine therapeutically. So I don't know why the science would be working for it. And like Dr. Ferber says, it's really on a case by case basis. If somebody's in an active manic state or something like that, we can't treat them. But the truth is that it's showing efficacy.
Sure. I'm guessing, as time goes on and you have the data that you could, of course, rely on more of that
Yeah.
as a validation. I understand that. So again, I wanted to just reiterate about the having the courage. I believe if I think the force and the energy behind your work is your own, I believe. I think that makes a huge difference because otherwise, if we look at the current situation, we have to, be very careful with the harm reduction and the screening process and the aftermath of like, there is a lot of, especially now we are, probably you are also coming across journalism that is kind of coming after some of these facilities and the people who are supposedly engaged in sort of misconduct or not really capable. And then, a lot of people are affected by this. So it's a very tricky and sensitive and fragile place to be navigating. And how are you finding it?
I think that it's all about intention. I mean, like if people are in this for the right reasons and their intention is to help people heal, and that's the most important thing to them about their operation, I think that that's probably a good place to go to. I think that in the psychedelic industry, when it first started off, there's a lot of VC money that came flying in the door, and everybody had a lot of pressure put on them to make sure they were making quotas, and the ROI was there and all kinds of stuff like that, where it's like, I always knew that the way that you were going to be successful in this field was just by helping the next person first. And as long as you focus on that, everything else is going to fall into place because that's really what this is all about. And this industry is about the long game too. I mean, like, everybody came flying into it thinking that everybody was going to get rich instantly and that it was just so glamorous and stuff, which didn't prove to be the case. I mean, like here we are 5 years after we opened up the clinic, and none of the other compounds are still FDA approved yet. Um, and but that being said, I'm very happy with ketamine. We do amazing work, and I think that if nothing else went through, we have something that is very effective. I mean, that being said, though, I am working on another deal right now with the guys from Pneumatics. I'm on the board of directors for Pneumatics, which is a nonprofit organization that was going to be doing DMTX research, which is extended state DMT. And we're actually in the near future here, like very, very near future, going to be able to offer the DMTX protocols to the public for people to come and do those kind of treatments out of country. That also being said, we also are going to be able to utilize the other psychedelic compounds as well. So we don't really have to wait through for FDA approval anymore here in the States so much. I mean, you're definitely going to have to leave the country and come to where we're at to come do these things, but we'll be able to utilize MDMA and DMT and psilocybin and LSD, anything that we really want to.
Yeah, totally makes sense. Yeah. So do you find yourself leaning towards DMT a little bit? Do you have like a soft spot? Because some people do. Not many. I don't meet a lot of people that are passionate about DMT, but I am hearing that maybe something that is unique and
I
amazing.
mean, I quit an opiate addiction from a DMT experience. And the thing is that I think that one of the most healing parts of psychedelic medicines for me was the psychospiritual experiences that were attached to them. Okay. And so, I had divine experiences, I had out of worldly experiences where I made contact with higher dimensional beings or entities and came back with telepathic communication that I applied to my life. And I'm a big fan of the breakthrough experiences because it makes life magical again. And we're retrieving, universal consciousness, information that's being downloaded into us during these experiences. And that only happened to me when I took macro doses of psilocybin, which can be like DMT or smoked DMT. I had those experiences from intramuscular ketamine. And so, that's why we do things the way that we do it at our facility. I mean, we hand tailor everything for everybody, and we realize that maybe somebody isn't interested in having that kind of experience. But we have such a high success rate in one way, not just because we're a high vibrational facility where everybody has the right intentions behind what we do, but we embrace the breakthrough experiences and realize that this is where the long-term healing comes from. And so DMT is a very effective way to have a breakthrough experience. The only problem with it is that those experiences only last about 15 minutes. But there's a doctor named Dr. Andrew Gallimore, and him and Rick Strassman got together and created the DMTX protocol, which is basically it's extended state DMT. What they do is they give it to NN-DMT intravenously through an IV, and they slow drip it and keep you in a peak breakthrough state from anywhere from 30 to 90 minutes at a time, so you can navigate this otherworldly place. And so, we're working with Dr. Gallimore and a team of other amazing people, Egan and Patrick from Pneumatics. Carl Hayden Smith is another person that we're working with. He's on the board of directors as well. And so it's everybody's really interested in these otherworldly experiences and being able to navigate that space. They just did studies at Imperial College of London with the DMTX protocol, and Graham Hancock was saying that people were having these breakthrough experiences and making contact with otherworldly entities, and that they were meeting up with the same beings and getting the same information and coming back with it when these people had never spoke before. And so we're actually going to be looking to continue those studies and see what kind of amazing things that we can discover by utilizing this protocol.
Amazing. This is so fascinating, isn't it? It's really exciting times. I was actually invited to one of the universities led a study that was led by Dr. Luke and on
David
DMT
Luke.
study. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And there's several of us, like we volunteered to look at the studies, and all we had to do is, so they gathered the information and we had to look at correlations, compare how people are sort of like how they express their experience. And then we had to catch nuanced, correlations, themes. It was so fascinating and fun. And also, like you said, it sounds like a rites of passage. Like DMT is one of those psychedelics that I think the only thing that I have about it is I think it's definitely a pattern disruptor. They call it, this is the pattern disrupting medicine. So I think it's really fascinating that we are now okay with the intravenous and being in the experience longer duration. I think that's going to really change everything about DMT. So
I do too.
that's
It's one of
great.
these medicines that like it gives you a peek behind the veil. And like
Yeah.
that's a very magical place to be. Especially when, in society we're kind of in this, I mean, it's the program, right? It's like, like it's the proverbial matrix that we're living in where, people feel hopeless sometimes because they're locked into this this hamster wheel that we're kind of in where it's like I get up, I do this, I go to my job, I work the 9 to 5. And listen, there's nothing wrong with that. I'm not saying there is, but like a lot of people aren't fulfilled doing those kind of things. Or they, like one thing I notice about with mental health, especially with our clinic, is a lot of people are very depressed because they don't know what their purpose is. They're like, what am I doing here? Right? Was I just put on this earth to get up and go sit in my cubicle and sit at a computer and work and then go home and eat my dinner and just like I'm in this loop and it doesn't feel like you're ever gonna break free from that. Like, is that really what I'm supposed to be doing here? And what psychedelic medicines did for me was they taught me that all of the trials and tribulations that I had been through in my life led me up to this moment so I could be of the highest level of service. I have a stoic mentality now where it's like I went through what I went through to get to where I'm at now so I can go back and help other people. And I think that that's really only you can only achieve that kind of mentality when you've had a real healing experience yourself, from taking medicines. You're like, oh my gosh, I had these things I was working through and nothing ever seemed to work for me. And then all of a sudden I've struck gold with this medicine and I did the inner work and I went deep within. And now that I've had this experience, I need to share it with other people. And so I'm going to be of service now and I'm going to pass the torch. I'm going to like, keep helping more and more people. And once you actually find that for yourself, life gets very exciting again because it's like, oh, okay, I know why I went through everything I went through. I understand that it wasn't punishment, it was preparation. There isn't some evil God that's doing all of this to me or whatever. It's like, and listen, there's some very dark places that people get taken to and things don't seem fair. And they always aren't fair, but the thing is though, is I have to look at what's the service that I can create out of this? How can I turn something that seems so dark and negative into a positive and be a light for other people? And I think that psychedelic medicines give people the opportunity to sit back and be the observer and really get to that place of clarity where they know that even if they went through some incredibly hard and trying and difficult things in their lives, that they can use that for a positive thing in the long run.
Yeah, completely. It's like a breakthrough in the perception, how we perceive everything, right? Yeah. I guess it's very human to be in service. I think there is something about being human and being in service that changes the entire trajectory of how we experience life. And it is also very popular now that, like you said, everybody jumped in for the ride. Oh, this is going to be amazing. And it's almost like the new trend. We should all be a psychedelic therapist or the facilitators, right? But of course, what defines the long haul, the one that stands, strong for the whole long haul, like you said, we're not here for a quick buck or a quick fame or a quick incentive. This is not cryptocurrency, like now it's going on, there are always trends circulating in our Western crazy world. And like you said, psychedelic isn't one of those. I know, I can see that already. A lot of the people who started several years ago, they're not around anymore, right? So
It's a
what would,
vibration.
yeah,
So listen, when you're on these vibrational planes, everything's vibrations and frequencies, and like you can't fake a frequency. All right. The universe knows what your intention is. The universe doesn't give you, because like I believe in the laws of attraction and that we're magnets, right? So I can sit here and tell you some amazing things and I can sound really good when I'm saying them. But if it's not actually who I am and what I embody, the universe sees right through it and you vibrate out of the equation. And so I think that a lot of the people that came around at the beginning might have not had the purest intentions. And I mean, and maybe it was just really hard, and a lot of people couldn't, outstand the tests of the universe to see if they were really going to be the warriors on the front lines of this. But, I think that for our company, it was not easy. It was incredibly brutal and hard, and there was a lot of hoops that we had to jump through. And if I wasn't mission driven and coming from a heart centered place, I might have quit a few times myself. But the thing is that I knew that there was nothing else for me. I mean, like I had some burning bush divine psychedelic experiences, which encouraged me to do what we're doing right now. And I basically got that message from God, right? And so like, and not in a religious sense. I'm not out here trying to come from that place at all. It's more of like a spiritual sense where I connected to my higher self and that we're all one collective consciousness. But I saw this vision, I got the information, and I was just like, okay, that was a message from God, and I'm not going to give up until I do this. And if I, either I'm going to die trying or I'm going to make it happen. And if I, do end up dying trying, I hope I help a lot of people in the meantime. It wasn't about the monetary outcome for me. And see, the thing is I think that the people that go into it with that mentality, the monetary part is just a byproduct of doing the right thing. And so, as long as you're a genuine person that's doing things for the right reasons, I truly believe that those are the people that are going to be around this industry or be in facilitating these kind of healing experiences for people. And that the monetary stuff will come, but like I don't care about the money for that reason. Like I want, I don't think money is evil by any means. I want to be a conscious capitalist and I want to make a ton of money so I can do great things for the world. And so it's like I don't think money's evil. I think what people do for money might be evil, or do like, with money when they get a whole bunch of it and don't use it for the right reasons. And so, everything's made of energy. Money is energy, and it takes a lot of it to make things happen.
totally agree. This is so resonating. Do you know what I just had this insight of? One of the things that I feel about the psychedelic medicines is that it's almost like the moment you start working with them, this intelligent field opens up. I started calling it purification channel. So like you said, if you are, this is not some trend that is going to die down, or that, you can jump in and do what you can. This is not that. This is absolutely not that. And this is a test of time commitment. You need to have this strong conviction that is the drive, so you can stay on your lane, right?
Yeah.
Otherwise, this channel will chew you and just throw you out. That's how I see it. I think, like you said, people are coming in with this expectation and really high on this, trendy thing. But then, like you said, if they're not having or coming from that convicted place of, I'm here for long haul and I'm going to do this at the most, utmost integrity, that's kind of how it's aligned. I was going to ask you, what's the difference, and you already said that this manifestation and having the highest frequency is definitely. I know it sounds woo woo, but it just is.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and I'm a fan of the woo woo, but that being said, though, it's like, I mean, listen, like, uh, when I think that the best ROI that you can get from something like this is helping people heal. Like that's the return on my investment. And I'm really satisfied with that. I love that part. That's the best part of my life is, my family and helping people heal. And so I talk with people about this sometimes, and I'm just like, there's absolutely nothing else for me. Like, I couldn't be like, oh, I'm not making enough money in this industry. I'm gonna go try something else. It's like there is nothing else. I think that like once you have these kind of experiences and you get this experience of healing and realizing that this is about a transformation that humanity has to go through, and that you need to be, listen, when you're pioneers in something, it's never easy, and so, but like I know in my heart of hearts that this is what the world needs. And so, I was having a conversation with one of our clients today after he came out of his treatment, and I was just like, listen, I want to be remembered for doing something good for the world. Lord knows that I didn't do enough for good stuff for many years of my life, and I was very selfish and self-seeking and, addicted to drugs and alcohol, and was just kind of like on my own path of destruction. And psychedelic medicines gave me the ability to love myself enough to actually want to flip that and do something positive with my life. So like I know that these medicines, if they had the capability of transforming me to that effect, then they can do it for anybody else that's really struggling out there. And I know by doing this that I'm going to be leaving a better place for like my son to grow up in, and for everybody else to live in. So that's how I would want to be remembered, by doing something that's, righteous for the world like that.
That's a beautiful mission. Thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you.
Really, truly.
Thanks.
Wow. It's always so deep and amazing to be able to catching up with you, Charles. So as we're coming to the end of our conversation, I'd like to ask, I wanted to say, what's the mission? But we can see in your voice, there is a passion, there's a conviction, I call it like there's a greater design that you're tapping into, there's something else that is in action. So what I would like to say is, what are your current projects, and how could our listeners get in touch? Where can they find you? And maybe
So,
anything that inspires you to share.
so, I mean, I'm very passionate about our nonprofit organization, the Warriors of Consciousness, and we're on the brink of putting 100 people through treatments at our facility for free that couldn't afford them, which is pretty amazing. That being said, I'm very passionate about the work I'm doing with Neonautics, and that's another nonprofit organization that people can donate to. It's to basically, build one of the most space age research centers on the planet to do all of the work that I was kind of talking about earlier. So you can go to newnautics.org to get to look at that website and see some of the fantastic people that we're working with. And listen, like, I think that when you asked what before, like, what's this really about to me? Like, I am manifesting a healing organism that's going to help transform humanity to a higher state of consciousness. And not like Charles is doing it from an ego-based place. I'm just another droplet of water in the ocean of consciousness. But it's like I've been saying lately, I feel like we're getting enough of these droplets of water together where we're going to be able to make a big splash. And I'm excited about that. And so, that, and I guess I'll leave one thing for the listeners, and basically what my message for the world would be is like, remember to like take things lightly. And this is really the dream of life. So we're here to experience the experience. And so always remember to observe without judgment, and that the answer is always love.
I love that. Thank you so much. This is amazing. Thanks for the message. Thanks for your wisdom and your time that you spent with us today. We wish you all the best, and I'm sure we'll have you back in the future for follow-ups. We just love returning guests. It's just amazing for us to see that there is a progressive journey ahead. It's also good for our listeners to build trust, because people who stick around, they are seriously involved and they're committed to this work. So thank you very much, as always. So we'll have everything in the show notes. We'll add all the links, and our listeners can get in touch. But for now, yeah, thank you so much, Charles.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Hope you guys enjoyed this. It was really upbeat. I feel the upbeat and really positive energy. So I hope you guys kind of can tune into that as well. Share your comments, please. Drop a feedback, and I will see you guys on the next one. Bye for now.